What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I'm here to do my preview video for the Arizona Cardinals versus Miami Dolphins game on tomorrow. It is still on as scheduled. Real quick, let me just say I've decided that I'm gonna kind of do this video a little bit more like last week, the abridged version, not with all the fucking super in-depth stats. I'm gonna leave that a little bit more for the post-game analysis videos. Yeah, so just to kind of keep things a bit more concise and everything. I did like the league standings and whatnot, but and that certainly is part of my evaluation. I just won't be, going through all of them because it's a lot of stuff and it is a lot of work to have to even put together to begin with. And then obviously it makes the videos super long. So I'm just gonna, go off the stuff that I have in my head, but rest assured those things are, in my head. Like, for example, the Dolphins defense apparently is one of the best, or the best in the league at third down defense, I think it is. Anyway, so we'll get into that. So look, as it stands right now, the game is still expected to go on. There haven't been any new positives from the Dolphins, but obviously they did have one assistant coach test positive, and they also put Lynn Bowden Jr. on the COVID-19 list, and so we will not have him for this game. He's a backup, wide receiver / running back, also, somebody who would play on special teams, so he is not going to be in this game. Having said that, and also, to transition into, the injuries for this game. So look, overall, real quick, before I get into like the specific names and, possible implications, let's note that up until this point, the Dolphins, or really up until the past few weeks, the Dolphins have actually been one of the healthier teams in the league. Now, unfortunately, just because the nature of the beast, the Dolphins are starting to accumulate, some injuries. And so that's unfortunate, and it will have an effect on this team. Especially, my evaluation of it is that the Dolphins have been overperforming this season because, in part because they've been playing well, to be fair, right? I don't want to, leave that out or, make it seem like I don't acknowledge the fact that they have overall been playing pretty well. Most notably the defense, and most notably in recent weeks. So the year started off with the defense playing pretty bad and the offense playing a bit better than expected, but also just kind of playing okay, right? That's how the year started. Then, as the year has gone on, the season has gone on, rather, the defense has improved week in and week out, little by little, and they're actually starting to play pretty tough, which we've seen in the past couple games. The offense, however, has, up until Tua went into the game, if I'm being honest, was just kind of plateauing, right? Now, they were playing well overall. Fitzpatrick was playing well overall. Again, I didn't see any reason to do the substitute, but they were just kind of, average and okay, right? I mean, if you look at the overall fucking play of the Dolphins offense, they needed to do a lot better if they're going to be able to hang with the top teams, make it through, a deep run into the playoffs, blah, 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 right? So, but then when Tua went in, if you're keeping it real, it took a step back. Now, we'll have to wait and see how things go in this upcoming game. However, unfortunately, the injuries that we've been having, there've been, the Dolphins actually have, over the past few weeks, started to rack up some significant injuries, and on both sides of the ball. And so let's get into this a little bit. First and foremost, the Dolphins will be without Matt Breida because of a hamstring injury. So he was listed on the injury report. He was limited, I think, but he's going to be out. So we're not going to have him. He's obviously one of our top running backs. We're also not going to have Myles Gaskin because he was placed on injured reserve on Thursday. Additionally, we did bring in that running back DeAndre Washington, but he has to go through the COVID protocols, so he will not be available for the game either, which means our run game wasn't actually all that great to begin with. It was okay, right? It was, average, somewhere kind of in the middle of the league, and it was okay. It was okay. But Gaskin was our top guy, and now he's going to be out. We also have, of course, Austin Jackson has been on injured reserve, although we hope that he's going to be coming back soon. Right, and so we have had some injuries there. Obviously, we also did just self-inflicted wound. We got rid of Isaiah Ford, and he was one of our top receivers, top 4, right? With, Devontae Parker, Jakeem Grant, and Preston Williams. Those were the top 4, and they decided to get rid of him. So that does hurt our offense, whether people, think want it to or not, right? It's going to overall decrease. Now, I don't know if they did, but we do have Antonio Callaway, who they could have, elevated. I'm not sure if they did or not. I hadn't seen any news on it, but there is that. Anyway, so unfortunately, because of these injuries, Matt Breida, Myles Gaskin being out, the other guy that can't even be there, and then you add in Isaiah Ford now not even being here, the offense is going to, unfortunately, overall be hurt by that. So that's going to make it even more difficult for this Dolphins offense to perform in this game against the Cardinals, who is a good team. They are 5-2, and they have been playing really well. Now, they will be without Kenyon Drake, so that does affect their offense pretty significantly. And they all are also going to be without one of their, I think he's a corner. Dre Kirkpatrick, I think is his name. Kirkpatrick or something like that. Dre Kirkpatrick, yeah. Dre Kirkpatrick, and he's a corner. He was ruled out of the game. So those are pretty significant injuries. But look, this game, honestly, especially with the way that we're, we're only going to have, our running backs are going to be Jordan Howard, who, hasn't really shown much of anything except for the ability to be a short yardage and goal line back. Patrick Laird, I actually do really like him and what he has shown in the past. And he is similar to Myles Gaskin from what I can tell. I don't really know much about the Sylvan Ahmed dude. And let's see. We still do, Lynn Bowden's not there, but we still do have Malcolm Perry as well, the draft pick that we have. So we do have a few guys, but unfortunately, it's just hard to expect that the run game is going to get a lot of production. I hope to be surprised by that. I hope the run game does better than what I expect, but unfortunately, with all the guys that we've lost now in, this past week, or at least for this upcoming game, the production would expect to fall off quite significantly. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they surprise, but we will have to wait and see. I would expect, though, this to be a game that is more predicated on Tua's arm. So, as you guys know, I've been saying that he kind of lucked out last week. Now, it is true that the Dolphins offense had 11 drives that were complete failures, right? So they were on the field from that perspective, they were on the field quite a bit. I mean, they had 11 drives that they could have done something with and did nothing with, right? So they ended up punting, a lot of 3-and-outs, 9 punts, and then they fumbled the ball twice, right? So the offense was terrible for the amount of time they were on the field. But then when you look at it from the perspective of how long they actually had the ball and how long those drives were, they didn't sustain a drive longer than 6 plays, right? And they only had the ball, I think, for like 23 minutes or something like that, or maybe 25 minutes. But they definitely lost the time of possession battle. So, and then even the 2 offensive scores, they only had really short fields and didn't have much to work with. They didn't have to go up against that defense for very long because the defense shut them down quick and got them off the field, right? So, but this game, and even besides that, though, all they were doing with Tua was having him hand the ball off, which is going to be a lot harder to do in this game. And, just do a bunch of like short, easy passes and stuff like that. The couple shots that they did take, he missed on. So, you would hope that they're going to take more shots down the field in this game, especially with Drake Kirkpatrick being out. But, and especially since the run game is, taking a pretty significant hit this week. And so you're going to expect that the game is going to be a lot more on Tua's shoulders this game than it was last game, right? So he kind of lucked out and didn't have to really throw the ball all that much. And they didn't even play really, they played with a lead the entire time too, right? So, and even a pretty significant lead the entire time because, the defense was balling out, got them 4 turnovers, got them a touchdown. Special teams got them a touchdown, right? Also, they're not going to be able to rely on those things likely, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the defense balls out again, gets 2, 3, 4 more, turnovers. I doubt they're going to get that many. Maybe they get 1 or 2. I doubt the defense is going to score a touchdown, but maybe they will. And I doubt that the special teams is going to score a touchdown, but maybe they will. You're not going to be able to rely on that in every game, and especially a game like this against a team who is relatively healthy and is also a good team. They do have a good offense and a good defense. That offense with Kyler Murray and, DeAndre Hopkins and stuff. And they got, a few other guys as well. But look, this is not a team. It's going to be a super tough challenge. And this week, the Dolphins are going to have to travel, as opposed to last week where the Rams had to travel, right? So we did have the advantage of home field, which we're not going to have this week, which includes, fans and stuff like that, but also the field, right? Like last week, the Dolphins got to, at one point, they showed, the discrepancy of temperature between the sidelines. It was 80 degrees on the Dolphins sideline and 140 on the Rams sideline. Now, is it actually 140? No, it was in direct sun, blah, blah, blah. But with humidity and the different things, it could have felt like it was fucking that hot. And certainly it was over 100 degrees and probably pretty significantly over 100 degrees. And it certainly does wear down on you. So the Dolphins are not going to have all of those advantages this week as well. So this, this game is going to be in a lot of ways, going to be harder than it was last week against the Rams. As surprising as that may sound, right, and seem, especially with how vaunted their defense is and whatnot, the Rams, that is, how vaunted their defense is. I think this team, the Cardinals team, when you look at it in its entirety, and especially in the context of this game and with injuries, I think that overall, I like Kyler Murray better at quarterback, and I think overall they probably, as opposed to Jared Goff, and I think that their offense is probably overall a bit better than the Rams is. So I think, from that perspective, not to mention, our defense has also taken considerable hits. Devon Godshaw is, out for indefinitely for right now. And, Byron Jones, Brandon Jones, they're both banged up. Xavier Howard's been dealing with his thing, although he has looked to get healthier and healthier. Jamal Perry, I think is listed as questionable for this game, but probably won't be playing. Not to mention, Van Ginkel's gotten banged up. A bunch of these guys have been getting banged up. The entire defense have been getting banged up. So, it's going to be a tough test. I think overall, it's going to be a harder game for our defense this week than it was last week. I think the matchup's going to be harder for our defense. And then on the flip side, I think that overall, even though I would say I think the Rams defense is actually probably better, across the board, just overall, I think the Rams defense is better than the Cardinals defense. However, when you take other factors into account, Their defense isn't going to have to sit in the super hot South Florida sun. We're the ones traveling. They aren't. They have home field advantage. And then, but more importantly, when you take into consideration that, like Austin Jackson is on IR, but also that even more importantly than that, the fact that, our run game is, I don't know. Again, we'll see, but the expectation, my expectation as of right now is that it's going to take a significant hit. We only got 55 yards on the ground last week with Gaskin in the game. And Breida in the game, and both of those guys are going to be out, right? So, they've only been averaging, roughly 100 yards, which is good. Again, they have to be better, though, and more consistent if they're going to, stick with the fucking top teams in the league. So, with the hit that they're going to take, I think that, again, this game offensively for the Dolphins is actually going to be harder than last week's, and it's going to have to, Tua's going to have to show a lot more than he did in, the entire offense is, which is going to be super tough. So, it's going to be a really difficult game. And look, if last week was any indication, then obviously, crazy things can happen, and, games can go in all sorts of directions, and it can flip really fast, right? So, first play of the game, Dolphins jump off sides on defense, and you're like, not a very good start. But then they bounce back and cause a 3-and-out. Then they go 3-and-out or whatever, and then, the Rams score a quick Then they didn't go 3-and-out. Then they ran the ball, got 3 yards, and then Tua had the sack fumble, right? Aaron Donald knocked the ball out of his hand, and then I think it was Brockers that actually cleaned up the sack, but I think the stat went to Aaron Donald. Anyway, point is though, right, and then that happened. You're like, oh man, but then, blah, 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 all these things happen. Dolphins score on defense and set up the offense with 2 easy field position battles to get touchdowns, and then there's the special team score, right? So obviously anything can happen, but my honest evaluation is going to be the same as last week. This is a 5-2 team going into it. They're a tough team. They're the only team that's beaten the Seahawks so far this season. They're coming off their bye week. We have to travel to them. They have home field advantage. They are going to be missing 2 key guys in Dre Kirkpatrick and Kenyon Drake, but I think they're going to be able to overcome that, and I think they are ultimately going to get the win. I think it's going to be another rough day, on the job for Tua. It's going to be a tough team to go up against, especially since his offense is going to be hampered by not having, probably much of a run game, unless they surprise in that department. And he's really going to have to show that, he can do it with his arm and so on and so forth. So it's going to be a tough game. I do think ultimately the Dolphins are going to fall to 500 and end up 4-4 after this. But hopefully they can surprise me. And look, especially with the way that they have now started to accumulate injuries, right? So my guess, unfortunately, because of the way it is when you extrapolate to the rest of the season, you're not going to be able to avoid injuries. So I'm ultimately, I think things are going to balance out. As I said, I believe that the Dolphins have been overperforming because of, other factors that people just don't want to talk about, like the fact that they've played teams that are, they'll acknowledge it for half a second, but then it won't really even be a sticking point in their evaluation as far as the Dolphins' performance. They'll just forget about it when they go to grade them. They'll mention it, but then it'll completely go out the window when they actually give their grade. And so I think the Dolphins have overperformed. I think that, unless they stay healthy, right? But unfortunately, you're not going to be able to avoid all injuries. It's just, can they keep the main core players? Van Noy's and Landon Roberts, they've all had injuries that they're dealing with. So if those core guys, Shaq Lawson, right, Ogba, they've all had little things. So if those guys, once we start losing those guys, then it becomes an issue, and, the team can fall apart. So if they don't do that, then I've said before that if that doesn't happen and they can remain healthy, then this team does have an opportunity riding on the back of the defense, at least for the time being, to give the offense, time to improve and get better and start, holding up their end of the bargain. Then they could certainly make for a push, within the division, for the playoffs, all that and the other. But I think what's, more likely, unfortunately, especially with, COVID continuing to be a problem and, there being a likelihood that the Dolphins have, more positive tests at some point in the season, just like everybody else. And then with injuries, expected to stack up, to some degree at least, I think it's probably at this particular point in time, more likely that the Dolphins will eventually fall back down to earth and catch up to the rest of the league in that sense, right? So it's unfortunate and you don't want to see it. You never want to see anybody get hurt, but that's just the nature of it, especially in a season that is, seen more injuries than normal, right? So, especially, the soft tissue ones and so on and so forth. So, the Dolphins are going to get affected by it. They're likely to get affected by COVID again. And I think what's more likely again to happen, to say it for the final time, is that they'll come back down to earth and things will balance out. And then, they'll start to be, a team that's also affected by injuries and stuff, whatever. And then I think, the play on the field will balance out, right? Because look, if the Dolphins against the 49ers were, even half as injured as the 49ers were, then it would have been a lot closer, a lot more competitive game, right? So anyway, and in the Jets game, despite the fact that they're as bad as they are to begin with, and then also on top of that decimated by injuries, the Dolphins really should have done a lot better and dominated across the board, far greater than they did. Anyway, so I think that's what's more likely to happen, and I think they'll probably end up stacking some more losses towards the back end of the season, but it all just depends on so many different things, and there are going to be opportunities, and I hope that's the way that it goes, right? So I hope that they overperform in this game, but I was saying all of that to say that, look, now that they are starting to unfortunately have some injuries mount up and whatever, and even if that's the case, they have to prove that when the playing field is even, right? Because they are going to play, a bunch of potentially winnable games, but the context of those games is that a lot of these teams are still going to be affected by injuries and COVID and stuff like that. And those things will, in some part, give the Dolphins an advantage that they wouldn't otherwise have had, right? So they have to prove, though, that they can continue to overperform, right? They have to continue to do that. And if they do that, right, so like, let's say they go out against the Cardinals, another good team. This is probably one of, when you look at the rest of the schedule, this is honestly probably one of the last good teams that they're really going to play this season when you actually look at, at the very least, if you're looking just on, based off of record, right? So like, because we got the Chargers and the Broncos coming up, right? We have to play the Jets again, the Patriots who are not doing good, right? The Bengals who don't have a great record. We do have to play the Chiefs and the Bills again. So, in those games, those are obviously good teams. But like, the Jets, the Bengals, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Patriots, right? All those games, they're not actually turning out to be good teams this year, right? So the Dolphins will have an advantage if they can stay healthy in those games. Anyway, so I think you get the point. And if they go out and they win against a good team this week, and if the offense can step it up despite not having, their top runners, and if the defense can continue to play dominantly, like they did this past game, right, then you can start to shift the narrative, right? And you could certainly start to win me over and say that, okay, maybe they can do this. Maybe, but again, there's still a million different things that can happen in a million different ways that it can play out. So we do have to wait and see how it plays out. Overall, with the data and stuff that I have right now, like I said, and to wrap this up, it is definitely going to be a tough game. It's going to rely a lot more on the passing game with the injuries and stuff that we have at the running back position. And the defense is going to have to fucking, continue to play dominant. And it is going to have to be, a full team effort. Even if, special teams is incapable of getting a score, they're at least going to have to, win the field position battle to some degree, right? Like, get some good returns or, pin them deep, right? Stuff like that, which Matt Hawk did actually do pretty damn well, having to punt 9 times. I think he had 5 inside the 20, right? So, special teams is absolutely going to have to help and play their part as well. Also, obviously, not give up big returns. Don't give up a touchdown in special teams, stuff like that. So it is going to have to be a full team effort. The Dolphins defense is going to have to play dominant like they did this past week. And the offense is going to have to step it up despite the injuries, if they're going to be able to win this game and shock the world and come out 5-3. There is definitely some chance of it. There is a probability that it happens. Unfortunately, right now, with the information that I have, and the evaluation that I come up with, the result that I have based off of that information, it looks like the Dolphins will likely get a loss in this one and drop down to 4-4 on the season and drop to 500. Now, I mean, that's not, terrible, especially with winnable games going forward if they can stay healthy and whatnot. So, and they could certainly still make it into the playoffs, and it could certainly still be a better than expected overall season. So, we just have to wait and see how the rest of the year plays out. So, with that, that'll wrap it up. I mean, I guess, like, scores are so fucking hard to predict. I mean, I don't know. Let's say 30 to 24, 30 to 24, I guess, for the Cardinals. I don't know. It's super hard. All right, whatever. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm terrible at it anyway. So, I'm not very good at score predictions. Anyway, so I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspectives. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. Of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Phins up.